No. He said it the way he used to say it when I was a kid asking to stay up late. Flat, final, not even looking at me. He was standing at his kitchen counter with a mug of coffee going cold, watching the little TV he kept on the counter with the antenna bent sideways, and he said no like I'd asked him something ordinary. Dad, did you hear what I said? We need to leave, now. I've got the seat cleared. I moved everything to the back. We can be on the highway in 10 minutes. I heard you. Then get your shoes on. He set the mug down and finally turned around and looked at me, and I saw that stubborn thing settle into his face, the one I'd been fighting for 3 years. My father is 71 years old. He's got a bad knee that clicks when he stands up and a shoulder that doesn't go all the way over his head anymore. And he was standing there in the kitchen, where my mother died, like he had all the time in the world. Matthew, he said, sit down for a second. I don't have a second. Neither do you. I pulled my phone out and showed him, like the screen was going to convince him of anything. They're saying stay off the roads unless you're evacuating. The clinic on Route 9 closed. People are calling it in from 3 counties. Something's wrong, and I am not going to sit here and argue with you while it gets worse. Then don't argue. Dad, you drove all the way over here, he said, because you knew I'd do this. Isn't that right? You told yourself the whole way over, he's gonna fight me. I'll have to talk him into it. Because you always fight me. No. He picked the mug back up. More to have something in his hands than to drink it, I think. You drove all the way over here because you decided what I needed before you asked me. Same as always. You made the plan in your car, and now you want me to fill in my part. I want to be honest about how I felt in that moment, because it matters later. I felt like I was talking to a child who wouldn't put his coat on. That's the ugly truth of it. My father, the man who taught me to drive a nail and back a trailer and shingle a garage in one August weekend. And somewhere in the last 3 years, he had become, in my head, a thing I managed. A list of items. Groceries, pills, the loose gutter, the appointment I had to remind him about twice. I'd stopped seeing him. I'd been seeing a chore that wore his face, but I didn't know that yet. In that moment, I just thought he was being impossible. Okay, I said, holding my hands up. Okay, you're right. I made a plan. The plan is, we drive out of town on the arterial. We take 9 north to the interstate. We get away from whatever this is. That's the whole plan. Which part of it do you object to? That part, he said. The arterial. It's the fastest way out. It's the fastest way into everybody else. He turned the counter TV toward me. It was the local station, a woman at a desk reading off a paper, the crawl at the bottom repeating the same 3 sentences. Behind her, in a little box, was a traffic camera feed. I recognized it. That was the arterial, the stretch by the outlet stores, and it was solid. Not slow. Stopped. A river of brake lights that wasn't moving. I've been watching since 6 this morning, Dad said. Radio, TV, the window. You want to know what I've seen? Every gas station between here and the county line has a line out to the road. I watched 3 sheriff's cars go the other way, toward town, not away from it, with their lights on. And every single car on this street pulled out and turned left, toward 9, toward the arterial, because that's the way the signs point. Everybody's doing exactly what you want to do, Matt. Right now, all at once. I looked at the little traffic box. He wasn't wrong about it being stopped. So we sit in traffic for an hour, I said. Better than sitting here. You want to sit in a stopped car for an hour with whatever's making the sheriff drive toward it? No, I don't. So what do you want, Dad? Tell me what you actually want. And there it was. The thing that would have saved us 20 minutes of fighting if I'd asked it first instead of last. "I want 15 minutes, he said. "I want to fill some water. Take my pills so I'm not doing that math in a parking lot at midnight. Grab food that doesn't need a stove. Coats. The good flashlights, not the junk ones. My work gloves. And I want the paper map out of the truck, the county one. Because your phone's going to be useless the second everybody in 3 counties is on it at the same time." He said it evenly, like a man reading a grocery list, which is what it was. "Give me 15 minutes, and we don't take the arterial, and I'll get in the car, and I won't say another word about it." I opened my mouth to tell him 15 minutes was 15 minutes we didn't have. That's when the truck hit the tree. It came from the far end of the street, an engine sound that was wrong, too much of it, and then a bang that I felt in the floor before I understood it as a sound. Dad was already moving to the front window, faster than I'd have guessed he could. I got there beside him. 4 houses down, a pickup had come off the road and put its front end into the big maple in the Dolan's yard. Steam was already climbing off the hood. The windshield had that spiderweb bloom in it. For a second, nothing moved, and I thought, drunk or a heart attack, some ordinary catastrophe, the kind I write up for a living. Water damage, fire damage, a tree through a roof. Ordinary disasters have shapes I know. Then the driver's door opened, and a man fell out of it. He didn't get out. He fell, went down on his hands and knees in the grass. And I remember thinking, he's hurt. We should call somebody. And I actually reached for my phone. And then he got up, but he got up wrong. There's no other way I can say it. He came up off the ground, the way water comes up, all at once, no bracing, no wince. And he stood there, swaying with his head down and his arms loose. And even from 4 houses away, I could see there was something dark down the front of his shirt. Old Mr. Petrakis from the corner house was already crossing his lawn toward the truck. He had a cordless phone in one hand. He was calling to the man. I could hear the shape of it through the glass. "You okay, buddy, you okay? Hold on, Dad," I said. "I see it." Petrakis got close, reached out to steady him, the way you would, the way anybody would, a hand on the shoulder, and the man came apart. I'm not going to describe it the way it happened. I've decided I don't have to. What I'll say is that the man from the truck moved faster in that second than he had any right to, and Petrakis went down under him. And the sound Petrakis made was not a sound a person makes when they're startled. It was a sound from underneath everything. And 2 houses the other way, a screen door banged and somebody screamed. A woman, high and going higher. And up and down the street I heard other doors, other voices, that particular rising note of a lot of people realizing the same thing at the same moment. My hand was still holding my phone. I hadn't dialed anything. "That's not a drunk," Dad said quietly. He wasn't looking at the man anymore. He was looking at me. "Matt, that is not a fight, and it is not a drunk, and it is not a wreck. You understand me?" "Yeah," I said. My voice came out strange. Down the street, a sheriff's cruiser turned onto the block, lights going, no siren. And I felt a flush of relief so strong, my knees went soft. Help. Somebody who knew what this was. The cruiser stopped and 2 deputies got out, and one of them started walking toward the man over Petrakis with his hand up, saying something. And I watched the deputy's whole body change as he got close enough to see. I watched a trained man stop understanding what he was looking at. He didn't reach for his gun like they do on television. He backed up. Both of them backed up. And one of them was talking fast into his shoulder radio. And I could tell even from here that whoever was on the other end didn't have an answer for him either. 15 minutes, Dad said. You just gave them to me. Go fill every water bottle in the pantry. Cold tap, don't wait for it to run. I'll do the rest. And here's the thing. He didn't say I told you so. He had every right. 40 seconds ago, I'd been telling him to put his shoes on. And now a man had gotten out of a truck, and the whole argument was over. He could have made me eat it. Instead, he just turned around and started opening cabinets, and I did what he told me. I filled water. My hands were shaking, and I filled every bottle and old juice jug and the 2 thermoses under the sink. Cold tap, don't wait. And behind me, I could hear Dad moving through the house, with a purpose that didn't match the man I'd been arguing with. Bathroom cabinet, the rattle of pill bottles going into something soft. The hall closet, coats coming off hangers. The junk drawer and the good heavy flashlights coming out. He wasn't rushing. That was the thing that stuck with me even in the middle of it. He was fast, but he wasn't rushing. And there's a difference. And I didn't have a name for it yet, but I'd learn it by the end of the day. I carried the water to the front hall, and that's when I saw the bag. It was sitting by the door already. A soft-sided travel bag, blue and faded, the kind you'd take for a weekend at somebody's lake place. And it was half-zipped and mostly packed. Not packed in the last 15 minutes, packed before. I could tell because it had that settled look, the way a bag looks when it's been sitting a while. I nudged the zipper with one finger, not really deciding to, just doing it. Medication, the amber bottles I recognized, the same ones I refilled for him. A folded stack of spare clothes, undershirts and socks, done neat the way Mom used to do them. A flashlight, 2 bottles of water, a manila envelope that when I bent it open showed me the corner of his and Mom's marriage certificate, the deed to the house, what looked like insurance papers, all in copies, all in a plastic sleeve, and a photograph, loose, face up, the only loose thing in the bag. My mother, younger than I could clearly remember her, maybe 40, squinting into the sun on a beach we went to exactly twice, laughing at whoever was holding the camera, which would have been him. I don't know how to explain what I thought, except to say I thought I understood everything. He can't let her go, I thought. 3 years, and he's got a bag by the door with her picture in it. He didn't want to leave the house because leaving the house means leaving her. And even packed to run, he had to bring her with him. My throat did something complicated. I felt the whole shape of my father's grief in that bag. Or I thought I did. And it made me tender, and it made me sure, all at once, that he was a man drowning in a dead woman, and I'd been the only one keeping his head up. "Don't," Dad said behind me. I hadn't heard him come. He had his tool bag in one hand, the small canvas one, and a coat over his arm. I wasn't. You were. He came and zipped the bag shut, not angry exactly, just closing a door. "That's mine." "Dad, when did you—" "We don't have time for it." He picked up the bag and handed me the water in a cloth grocery sack. "Deputies are going to have their hands full and the street's going to wake up. We go now, out the back, around to your car from the side, not down the front walk." He looked at me. "You still got the keys in your hand?" I did. I'd been holding them the whole time. "Then you're driving," he said. "For now." We went out the back and around, the way he said. And I was glad of it before we reached the car, because the front of the street had become a place you didn't want to be. I won't linger on it. There were more of them now than the one from the truck. And there were people running, and the deputies weren't backing up anymore. They were gone, their cruiser doors hanging open and empty. We kept low along the side of the house and got to my car where I'd left it, half in the driveway and half in the grass. And we got in. Dad on the passenger side with his blue bag on his lap and the tool bag between his feet. And I backed out with the lights off because he told me to keep the lights off. "Which way?" I said. And I heard in my own voice that I was asking him. First time all day. He had the paper map open across his knees already. He'd grabbed it off the truck seat on the way. "Not the arterial. Go right, up Sumner, past the church. And then we're going to cut over on the little roads behind the middle school. There's a way out to Cutler that never has anything on it. If Cutler's clear, we take it north and we skip the whole outlet mess." He traced it with a knuckle. "It's longer, but longer moving beats short and stopped." "Okay," I said. "You disagree? Say so." "I don't disagree." And I didn't. It was the strangest feeling. Here he was reading me a route off a paper map with his reading glasses down on his nose. And it was a better route than mine. Sumner was moving. Not empty, but moving. Cars going both directions, some of them fast and stupid. One of them up on the curb and abandoned already with its hazards on. We passed the church, and the lot was full of people and cars, families loading up, a man arguing with another man over a parking space like it still mattered. And I wanted to stop and tell them all, "Go the back way, don't take the arterial." But Dad said, keep going, don't slow down. A slowing car makes people run at you." And he was right. Two men peeled off from the church lot and started toward us the second I touched the brake, and I had to pull my foot back and keep rolling and watch them get small in the mirror. "They're not sick," I said. "Those were just people." "People are the thing you'll spend all day being wrong about," Dad said. "Which ones are which? Turn here." We cut behind the middle school. Empty back streets, exactly like he said. The kind of streets I'd driven 1,000 times without ever looking at them. And for about 4 minutes, it was almost quiet. And I let myself think we'd threaded it. We were going to slip out the seam of the town while everybody else jammed the front door. Then Cutler wasn't clear. We came up to the little four-way where the back streets fed onto Cutler Road. And Cutler, which Dad had promised me never had anything on it, had a wreck across it. 2 cars, badly, one of them on its side. And around the wreck, on foot, moving between the stopped cars that had come up behind it, were people, and some of them were the wrong kind of people. And there were enough of them that I stopped without being told to. "Back up," Dad said. "Calm. Slow, don't spin the tires." I put it in reverse, and I did not stay calm the way he did. I backed up too fast and cut the wheel too hard, and I felt the right rear of the car drop off the edge of the pavement into the ditch shoulder. And there was a crunch and a scrape, and the car lurched and stopped. "Okay," Dad said. "Okay. Ease it forward. Gentle." I eased it forward. The car came up out of the shoulder with a grinding sound that went straight into my stomach, and then a flapping, dragging noise started under the right rear and didn't stop. We got maybe a half-mile back the way we'd come, up a dead-end-looking spur off the back streets that Dad pointed me into, before he told me to stop. The dragging sound had gotten worse. It had a rhythm to it now. A slap and a scrape, slap and scrape, once per wheel turn. "That's not the tire," Dad said, before I could panic about the tire. "Tire's holding air. Feel how it's tracking straight. That's the liner, the plastic thing in the wheel well. You popped it loose in the ditch and now it's dragging on the tire." He was already opening his door. "Pull it up on that flat spot by the fence, so it's not leaning. Then we look." The flat spot was the gravel apron in front of a locked gate to somebody's back field. I nosed the car up onto it and killed the engine, and the sudden silence was awful, because you could hear the town in it, not close. But there, underneath everything, a low, broken noise of the day coming apart, car horns, and something that might have been a siren, and a sound I chose not to identify. We got out and crouched at the right rear. Dad got down slower than me, one hand on the bumper, his bad knee complaining. And then he looked at the wheel well for about 4 seconds and understood it completely. "See," he said. He pointed. The plastic wheel liner had torn loose along the front edge and folded down, and the tire had been chewing on the folded part, which was why it dragged. "It's just clipped and screwed up in there. Some of the clips let go. We don't need it perfect. We need it up off the tire and secured so it doesn't drop again." He looked at his hands, then at mine. "I can't get up in there. Knee won't let me and my shoulder won't reach the top clip. You've got the reach and the grip, but you don't know what you're grabbing, and I do. So here's how we do it." And we did it together. He told me which part was the tab that seated into the fender and which part would just tear worse if I yanked it. Told me to fold the loose plastic up and back on itself instead of trying to force the broken clips. And when we needed to hold it there, he went to his tool bag and came back with a fistful of zip ties and a roll of the black wire he kept for 100 reasons. And he told me where to run them, up around the strut mount. And my hands did the work, and his eyes did the work. And between the two of us, in about 10 minutes, we had that liner hitched up tight and clear of the tire, and it wasn't pretty, but Dad said pretty's not on the menu today. "Turn the wheel lock to lock," he said. "Let me hear it." I got in and cranked the wheel side to side. No drag. He nodded once, satisfied. He'd needed me to reach. I'd needed him to know. Neither of us had said a word about it, and both of us understood it. That's when Elena and Victor came around the fence line on foot. I heard them before I saw them, and my whole body went stupid with fear. And Dad's hand came down flat on my arm, hard. "People," he said low. "Just look. Don't decide yet." 2 of them, coming along the field fence from the direction of the road. And even at 50 yards, I could see that they were the right kind of people. Because sick people don't help each other walk. The younger one, a woman, had her arm around the older one, a man, and she was carrying a bag over her far shoulder and matching her steps to his. And when she saw us, she stopped and put herself half in front of him, which is a thing a person does and a thing the sick don't. "We're not looking for trouble," she called. Steady voice, out of breath, but steady. "Our car's dead back on Marsh. We're just trying to get somewhere better than the road." "Then you found the right 2 idiots," Dad said, before I could say anything. And there was something in the way he said it, easy, unarmed in his voice, that made the woman's shoulders come down an inch. They came the rest of the way. Her name was Elena, she said, and this was her father, Victor. And Victor had a way of standing that told me his hip or his back was worse than my father's knee. But his eyes were sharp and moving, taking in the car, the folded liner, my father's tool bag open on the gravel. He looked at the zip tie job and gave a small grunt that I'd learned was approval. "Alternator?" Victor asked, nodding at our car. "Wheel liner," Dad said. "We ditched it. What killed yours?" "Overheat," Elena said. "We sat too long on Marsh, and it just—" She made a small gesture. "Done. There's a wreck at the Cutler four-way, and everything backed up behind it." "We met the wreck," I said. "Then you know." She looked between us. Doing math I recognized because I'd been doing it too. 4 people, 1 working car, strangers. "Look," she said, "we're not asking you to take us anywhere. If you can just tell us which way's clear. Dad thinks Cutler's a dead end now, and I think the church is where everybody's headed. and I don't want to walk him into that. Church is a mess, Dad confirmed. You'd be walking into the crowd, not away from it. That's what I said, Victor said mildly to Elena. Not as a jab, just a note. And Elena said, you did say that back to him the same way. And I stood there in the middle of the worst day of my life and watched a father and daughter disagree and land somewhere without either one of them treating the other like an idiot. Elena had turned to Victor and asked, what do you think? And Victor had answered. And Elena had taken it seriously. And Victor had let her arms stay around him without flinching from it, like it cost him anything. I looked at my own father, and I thought about the last 3 years, and I didn't like what I saw. You can ride with us, I said. It came out before I decided to say it. Far as the edge of the county, anyway. There's 4 seats. We're all trying to get out of the same town. Dad glanced at me. Not a warning glance. Just checking. Elena looked at Victor. Victor looked at the car, then at Dad, then at me, and made his decision the way I was starting to understand my father made his, without needing to know everything first. All right, he said. Thank you. We'll pull our weight. The pulling our weight came due about 6 minutes later, and it cost us. And I want to be honest that it cost us, because for a little while, I let myself believe the world had gone back to the kind of place where doing a decent thing pays you back clean. We loaded up, Elena and Victor in the back, Dad up front with the map, and we picked our way out of the dead-end spur and back through the middle school streets, looking for another seam. Dad had a new plan, and it was a good one. Cut down past the old feed store to the low road that ran behind the industrial strip, the plumbing supply, and the 2 contractor yards, and the little machine shop, because nobody evacuates down a road with no houses on it, he said. And that was exactly the kind of thing he was right about. But getting to the low road meant going back past the 4-way we'd already run from. And by the time we got near it, the wreck we'd seen had become the thing everybody in the neighborhood was flowing away from. And the low road, which should have been empty, had a slow trickle of cars nosing onto it from the other direction, feeling out the same seam we were. And, halfway down it, a minivan had stopped dead in the middle of the road, doors open, a family standing around it. And behind them, the road narrowed between the plumbing yard's chain fence and a drainage ditch, and there was no getting past. They're stuck, Elena said. Look, the woman's got a kid. There was a woman and a man, and 2 small kids. And the man had the hood of the minivan up, and was staring into it the way you stare at a thing you don't understand. And the road pinched down so tight around them that I couldn't have squeezed by, even into the ditch. We can push it, Victor said. Into that gate cut there, where the fence steps back. Clear the lane. That's 4 of us pushing and 1 steering, Dad said. And it's uphill just enough to matter. Fast, though. Do it fast. He was already reaching for the door handle. Matt, you and Elena on the back corners, Victor and I on the sides. Get the dad steering. Go. We went. And it worked, is the thing. Victor knew exactly where the gate cut was because he'd noticed it while I hadn't. And the 4 of us, with the minivan's dad, steering got that dead van rolling and swung it into the fence cut, and the lane opened up. And the mother was crying and thanking us and pushing her kids toward us like she wanted to give them to somebody who had a running car. And for about 30 seconds, I felt like a good man in a bad hour. But it took time. 3 minutes, 4. And while we were pushing that van back the way we'd come, the trickle of cars turning onto the low road behind us had become something worse. And the noise of us, and the noise of the stuck family, and one long, panicked blast of somebody's horn from the 4-way had done exactly what Dad kept warning me sound did. When we got back in our car and I looked in the mirror, the low road behind us had cars stopped in it and people getting out of them and moving down between the stopped cars toward all that motion and sound. The wrong kind of people. Not a horde. Dad kept telling me all day, there's no such thing yet as a horde. That's a nighttime word. But enough. Enough that the way we'd come was closed now. And the only way left was forward, down the low road, into whatever the low road turned into. We can't go back the way we planned, Dad said, watching the mirror. His voice didn't change. That was the thing about him. All right. New way. Keep going forward, past the machine shop. There's a rail crossing, and then it opens up toward the county road. Longer, but it's the door that's still open. He didn't say, and helping them close the other door. He didn't have to. We both knew, and Elena knew. And nobody said it, because saying it would have meant deciding we shouldn't have. And none of us wanted to be the person who decided that, with the mother still visible in the mirror. The minivan family didn't come with us. There wasn't room and there wasn't time. And the father waved us on and turned back to his van like he was going to fix it after all. And I've thought about them more than I want to. The low road did open up, the way Dad said, past the machine shop and over the rail crossing, out to where the buildings thinned and the yards got bigger and there were actual fields between things. We had maybe 40 minutes there where it was almost like driving. The sun was still up, low and gold and ordinary, coming through the windshield the way it does on a nice October afternoon. And if you didn't look at the smoke standing up in a couple of places back over the town, you could pretend. Elena and Victor talked low in the back, working out where they'd been trying to go, a cousin's place out past the county line, and whether the cousin's place even meant anything anymore. At one point, Victor said, "Your mother would have packed the whole kitchen." And Elena laughed, a real one, tired, and said, "She'd have made us wait while she found the good knives." And Victor said, "She would have." And there was a warmth in it, a mother remembered without the memory swallowing them. And it landed on me sideways. Because I'd been sitting there thinking about the bag, Dad's blue bag, on the floor by his feet now, and the photograph in it, and the certainty I'd felt in the front hall. "Dad," I said, low so it was mostly just us. "That bag, you had it packed before I got there." "I did, with Mom's picture in it." He didn't say anything. "That's why, isn't it?" I said. And I want to be clear that I thought I was being gentle. I thought I was finally understanding him. Finally saying the true thing out loud that we'd both been dancing around for 3 years. That's why you didn't want to leave the house. It's not the roads. I mean, you were right about the roads, but that's not really it. You can't leave because she's there. Everything in there is her, and even packing to run you had to bring her with you. Dad, I get it. I've been trying to get you to move on, and I never once just said, I understand why you can't. The silence in the car changed. Elena and Victor had gone quiet in the back, not because they were listening on purpose, but because you can feel when a thing gets serious 2 feet away. My father took off his reading glasses and folded them and put them in his shirt pocket, which was a thing he did when he wanted his hands empty to say something. "Matthew," he said, "I want you to listen to me because I'm only going to say it the once, and then you're going to let it sit, and we're not going to have it out in a car with company." He turned in the seat as much as the belt let him. "You have spent 3 years explaining me to yourself. You decided why I do everything I do, and the reason is always the same reason. It's always your mother. It's always grief. It's always the poor old man who can't let go. And you decided all that without ever once asking me a straight question and waiting for the answer." "Dad, I'm just saying I know what you're saying. I've been hearing it for 3 years, even when you didn't say it out loud. He wasn't shouting. That was the worst part. If he'd shouted, I could have defended myself. I didn't stay in that house because of your mother. I stayed in that house because it's my house. Because I built half of it with my own hands, and I know where every wire runs, and I like my chair, and I like my mornings, and it is mine. And a man gets to keep something that's his without his son deciding it's a symptom. He let that sit for a second. The picture's in the bag because I like her picture, and I wasn't going to leave it in a burning county. That's the whole reason. That's it. Not everything I do is a wound you get to bandage. I've been trying to take care of you, I said, and I heard how thin it came out. I know you have, he said. And he was quieter now, and somehow that was harder. That's the part that breaks my heart, son. You've been so busy taking care of me, you forgot how to just be around me. When's the last time you came over and we didn't do a task? When's the last time we just talked? 2 grown men, and you weren't managing something. He turned back to face the road. I don't need a manager. I've got a knee that's shot and a shoulder that quit, and I'm slow and I know all of it. I'm not asking you to pretend I'm not old. I'm asking you to quit treating old like it's the only thing I am. I didn't have anything to say to that. There wasn't a repair for it. He'd told me not to have it out, and he was right. And it hung there in the car unresolved, which is where he wanted it. And I drove and watched the sun get lower and let it hurt. The sun was most of the way down when the horn started. We'd come to the edge of a little commercial cluster where the county road met an old state route. The kind of place with a shuttered gas station and a farm supply store and a strip of low brick buildings that had been a lot of different businesses over the years. A nail salon, a tax place, a sandwich shop with the sign half fallen. Dad wanted us to skirt it, take the shoulder around the back, because commercial cluster means alarm systems and glass, and we don't want either one going off near us. But the county road we needed forked right through the middle of it. And just as we came up on the intersection, somewhere in that cluster of buildings, a car alarm went off, and then a second one, and then, worst of all, a horn locked on and stayed on. One long, unbroken blare. A car horn that isn't going to stop, because whatever's holding it down isn't a hand. Ah, hell, Dad said, very softly. Because I could already see them. It was full dusk now, the good gold light gone gray. And in that gray, all across the little commercial cluster, shapes were turning. Coming out from between the buildings, out of the shadow of the farm supply store, off the state route. All of them turning the same way at once, toward the sound. And the sound was between us and the fork we needed. We can't drive through that, Elena said from the back. No, Dad agreed. And we can't sit here. The car's a sound too. They'll come to an idle if it's the loudest thing. He was scanning, fast, the way he'd scanned the wheel well, taking the whole scene apart into pieces. There. Pull it in behind the farm store, the loading side, where it's dark and there's a wall between us and that horn. Then we go on foot, quiet. Through the buildings, come out the far side past the noise, and we're at the fork on the other side. It's 400 feet through those buildings. Quiet feet, we can do 400 feet. Dad, your knee. My knee'll do 400 feet, he said. And it was the first thing he'd said all day that I heard the effort in. I pulled us in behind the farm supply store into a loading area. Gravel and a concrete dock and a dumpster. Dark and walled off from the horn, and we got out. And getting out, I could see the truth of the knee. He came out of the car slow and put weight on the leg careful. And when he took his first steps across the gravel, there was a hitch in them that hadn't been there this morning. A whole day of climbing in and out of the car and crouching at the wheel well and pushing a minivan had spent something in him. He wasn't going to complain about it. He also wasn't going to be able to hide it much longer. And I did the thing. The thing I'd been doing for 3 years, except now it wore the mask of the moment. So it looked like the day made me do it instead of me. I looked at my father's hitching walk and the 400 feet of open gravel between us and the fork. And I decided, on my own, before I asked him, that I knew a better way. Because I did know buildings. That's my whole job. And the strip of low brick buildings ran continuous, one connected structure. And I knew from 100 jobs that those old strip buildings share a back service corridor, a single hallway behind all the storefronts where the utilities and the bathrooms and the back doors are. And if I could get us into that corridor, we could walk the whole strip indoors, out of sight, off the gravel, no open ground, and come out a door at the far end, right at the fork. Fast, level floor, easy on his knee, away from the eyes drawn to the horn. "There's an inside way," I said. "This strip's all one building. There's a service hall behind all the shops. We go in the back of the sandwich place, down the corridor, out the far end. We never touch the open." Dad looked at the strip. "You sure the hall runs all the way through?" "They always do. I've been in 20 of these." And I was already moving toward the sandwich shop's back door. And I heard him say, "Matt, wait." And I didn't wait, because I was protecting him, because I decided, because it was faster. And I told myself all the reasons, and every one of them was true. And it was still the wrong call. The sandwich shop's back door was unlocked, or near enough, the frame swollen and the latch not caught, and it gave with a shoulder. Inside was dark and smelled like old bread and cleaning fluid. And beyond, the little kitchen, was the corridor, exactly like I said. Running left and right behind the storefronts, doors along it, a concrete floor, a drop ceiling with the tiles sagging brown here and there. I clicked on one of Dad's good flashlights, hooded in my hand. "See," I said. "Straight shot. Come on." They came in behind me, Elena helping Victor over the sill, Dad last, and we started down the corridor toward the far end. And for about 80 feet, it was everything I'd promised. Level floor, quiet, walls between us and the horn that was still going out front, muffled now to a distant complaint. Dad walked easier on the flat. I felt the relief of being right for once, of my expertise mattering, of taking care of him in a way that actually worked. I should have looked up more. I'd looked at the floor. I'm a field adjuster. I know floors. I checked for the soft spots and the water damage and the trip hazards, and the floor was fine. The floor was concrete slab. What I hadn't done, because I was moving fast and I was proving something, was read the ceiling and the wall on the left. And if I had, I'd have seen what the brown sag in the tiles meant, and the dark tide line on the drywall, and the smell under the bread smell that was the smell of a slow roof leak that had been going for a long time over what turned out to be the old dry cleaner's storage. 2 units down. Or something heavy had been sitting on a floor that a long, slow leak had been quietly eating. There was a sound. Not loud at first. A settling groan. Wood and old plaster and something giving up a long argument with gravity, from up ahead and to the left. And I stopped and put my arm back to stop the others. And Dad said, "Sharp, back, get back." And we started to back up. And then the drop ceiling ahead of us came down. Not the whole hall. A section, maybe 15 feet of it, the sagging brown part. And it didn't come down like a movie. It came down like what it was, a section of soaked ceiling and the insulation above it, and part of a shelving unit from the room above that had been sitting on a rotten floor. all of it coming through at once in a slump of dust and dark and noise. And the noise was the thing. The noise was enormous in that closed corridor. And even as it happened, I heard my own voice going, "No, no," because I knew what noise did now. Dad had taught me all day what noise did. I got Dad back. I got a hand in his coat and hauled him back out of the fall zone. And Elena had Victor, and none of us went under it. But I was the closest. And a piece of the shelving, a length of angle iron shelf upright, came down across the edge of the fall and caught me across the shin and the top of the foot as I pulled back. And there was a white flash of pain that took my leg out from under me. And I went down onto the concrete with my ankle wrong beneath me. For a second, I couldn't do anything but hold it. The pain was a whole color. When it let me breathe again, I tried to stand and the ankle wouldn't have it, folded sideways, and I went back down onto one knee. And out front, through the walls, the horn was still going. And now there was another sound layered under it, closer, from the fall, and from the far end of the corridor where I'd been so sure the clean exit was. I heard the far door I couldn't see, the one at the fork, rattle. Something on the other side of it, drawn by the fall, testing it. Matt. Dad was down beside me, his own knee be damned, hands on my leg, quick and careful, feeling the ankle through the sock the way he'd read the wheel well. Okay. Nothing feels obviously out of place. That doesn't mean it isn't cracked. But I don't feel bone shifting. You hear me? He looked up at my face in the flashlight spill. Can you put any weight on it? I tried. I couldn't, not really. Some, I lied. No, he said. Not some, the truth. Can you walk on it? No, I said. Not fast, not far. Behind us, the way we'd come, the sandwich shop, was open dark. Ahead of us was the fall, and past the fall, the rattling door with something behind it. And the horn out front had done its work. And I could hear, now that I was still and low and listening the way he'd been telling me to listen all day, that the dark on both ends of that corridor was no longer empty. Elena had Victor pressed back against the right-hand wall, into a doorway alcove, out of the sight line of both ends. Smart. Her father's hand was on her arm, and he was saying something to her, low and steady, and she was nodding. And they were doing the thing again. The thing my father and I had never learned, deciding together without tearing at each other. I looked at my father. At his face in the dropped flashlight glow, calm, already moving past his fear and mine and into the problem, already listening to the building. His bad knee was folded under him on the concrete, and he was ignoring it. He'd spent everything he had to get 400 feet on foot, and I'd put him in a collapsed corridor between two sounds, because I'd decided, again, before I asked. Matt, Dad said. He'd stopped looking at my ankle. He was looking at me now, straight, and his voice had gone very level and very quiet, the fast, not rushed voice from the kitchen this morning, 100 years ago. Matt, I need you to stop trying to take care of me for 30 seconds and listen. I opened my mouth. Just listen, he said. There's a door in this alcove, an electrical room, and those rooms have their own way out to the back on buildings this age, or a chase we can get up into. Either way, it's a wall between us and both ends. We are not going through that fall, and we are not going back into the open. We're going to go small and quiet and let the noise out front pull them past us, and then we move on my say, not yours, because you can't run. And I know these buildings, and right now, that's what we've got. Your ankle changes the plan. It doesn't change who's getting us out of it. He waited. Can you do that? Can you let me do this? I looked at him. I looked at my own leg, folded useless under me on the cold concrete. I looked past him at the door, rattling at the far end, and back the other way, at the black mouth of the sandwich shop. I looked at Elena in the doorway with her father, competent and afraid and together. For the first time all day, I stopped trying to hold the decision. "Okay," I said. He waited. He didn't grab it. He just waited. To be sure I meant it. To be sure I wasn't going to snatch it back the second the fear spiked. "You lead," I said. He didn't waste the moment on being right about it. He nodded once, the way he'd nodded at the wheel well, and then he was already turning to the alcove door. And I heard him say, "Lo, Elena, there's an electrical room off this alcove. I need you to try that door, gentle, no bang. If it's open, we go in and we shut ourselves off from both ends for a minute and let that horn do our arguing for us." Elena tried the door. It was a gray steel utility door with a lever handle, and it opened inward with a small dry sigh. And Dad breathed out through his nose, relieved, and I watched him not let the relief make him careless. He put a hand flat on the doorframe and leaned in and listened before he'd let anybody through. "Small room," he said. "Panels on the left wall, that's fine, don't touch them. There's a second door on the far side. Good." He looked back at me. "Matt, this is the part you're not going to like. I can't carry you, and I can't let you drag that foot loud on this concrete. So we're going to do it the slow, ugly way. Victor, can you take his other side?" "I can take a side," Victor said. He came over with that careful walk of his, favoring whatever it was in his hip, and got under my left arm, and Dad got under my right, and between the two of them, two men with a bad knee and a bad hip and 71 and 67 years on them, they got me up off the concrete. I'm 200 pounds. I felt every ounce of it be a burden to them, and there was nothing I could do about it but keep my bad foot off the floor and hop the good one and try not to make a sound. And the sound I made anyway, a hiss through my teeth when the ankle swung, seemed enormous. We got into the electrical room, and Elena pulled the door shut behind us, soft, holding the lever so the latch wouldn't clack, easing it home. And then we were 4 people breathing in a concrete closet the size of a bathroom. In the dark, with a flashlight hooded to a coin of light on the floor. And out beyond 2 walls, the horn went on and on. Dad lowered me down to sitting against the wall. And then he lowered himself, slower, one hand braced on the panel housing he'd told everybody not to touch, and I heard the breath go out of him when his backside reached the floor. His knee was done. He'd never say it, but it was done. And I finally understood that it had been done for an hour, and he'd been running on the far side of done the whole time we'd been moving. "Now we wait," he said. "That horn'll draw everything within earshot toward it. We sit tight, quiet, and let the crowd pass us going that way. When it thins, we take the far door and see where it lets out." "You don't know where it lets out," I said. Not an accusation, just checking. "No," he said, "I don't. That's why I said see." He wasn't ashamed of it. He'd say I don't know as easy as he'd say pass the wrench, and it never once made him smaller. These old strip buildings, the electrical and mechanical rooms, usually back onto a service space or a rear stub hallway. Usually. This one's been chopped up over the years. You can see it in the different doors. So I'm guessing, and I'm telling you, I'm guessing. And we'll go careful because of it. I sat there with my ankle throbbing in time with my heart. And I thought about how many times in the last 3 years I'd have killed to hear my father say, "I'm guessing, help me think about this." And how instead I'd handed him decisions already made and read his no as him being difficult. We waited maybe 20 minutes. It felt like a year. Out beyond the walls, the horn finally choked and died. Whatever was pressing it, either shifting off or the battery giving up. And after it stopped, there was a long stretch where the only sounds were the ones the four of us made and the ones the building made. And then, once, close, on the corridor side of the wall, feet, slow feet, dragging, and a sound in a throat that I will not describe, passing left to right, going toward where the horn had been, and then gone. Elena's hand found her father's in the dark. Nobody moved. I didn't breathe until the feet were gone, and then I breathed too loud, and Dad's hand touched my knee. Easy, not now. When it had been quiet a good while, Dad said, "All right, Elena, I'm going to have you crack that far door. Just a crack. You've got the youngest ears and the steadiest hand of anybody in here, and I'm not too proud to say it." Elena huffed something that in a better night would have been a laugh, and went to the far door and cracked it, and put her face to the gap, and held there a long time. "Hallway," she whispered. "Short one. There's a door at the end with one of those bar handles, like a fire door. And there's light around it. Outside light, gray. It goes out." "There we are," Dad said, satisfied. And then, before anybody could get happy, "Wait, say again about the door. Bar handle and light all around it, or light at the bottom?" "All around. There's a gap all the way around the frame." Dad was quiet a second. "That's a door that's been forced or the frame's sprung. Or it's propped. If it's propped, it might not have caught, which is good for us, means it's not locked. But a gap all around means the seal's gone, and that means it's not going to shut quiet behind us. Push bar doors slam. That one'll slam, and then it'll bounce because the frame's sprung." He rubbed his face. "Okay. That's a noise we're going to make no matter what. So we make it once, on purpose, at the right time. And we're already moving when it happens. Not caught standing in the light with a door banging behind us. Everybody understand? We go through fast for a slow group, and we're gone from the door before the door finishes bouncing." It was such a small piece of knowledge. A door with a bad seal is going to bounce. But it was the kind of thing I'd have walked us right into, banged the door, stood there in the light while it clapped twice behind us, like applause for the whole street. We went through the way he called it. Victor and Dad got me up. And Elena went first to the fire door and set her hip against the bar and held it. And on Dad's word, she pushed it open into the gray. And the four of us went through in a clot, me swinging between two old men. And the door did exactly what Dad said. Slammed and bounced and slammed again. And by the second slam, we were already 6 feet gone from it, and moving along the back of the building in the last of the dusk. And nothing came around the corner fast enough to matter. We came out into a rear alley, a strip of cracked asphalt between the back of the building and a chain-link fence, and across the alley, past the fence, was a lot. And across the lot was another building, bigger, a metal and block commercial thing with a wide showroom front I couldn't see from here, but a plain warehouse back that I could, and a fenced service yard beside it with a couple of contractor trucks parked and a loading dock and a roll-up door. "There," Dad said, before I could say it, and I felt a flicker of something that wasn't quite competition, more like recognition. He'd seen the same thing I'd seen. A building with a working yard means tools and water and a break room and doors that lock, and means, mostly, that it wasn't a house or a store where people would be flowing. "Flooring place," I said, reading the ghost of the sign in the gloom. "Tile and flooring showroom, warehouse behind. Those are good buildings, Dad. Slab floor, no basement usually. Block walls. Not going to have the ceiling problem, I stopped. Not going to have that problem. "Say the whole thing," Dad said. "You were about to." "Not going to have the ceiling problem I walked us into," I said. "There," he said. That's the last time you say it. Once is honest, twice is just hitting yourself. Come on. There's a gate in that fence, and I'd bet the yard side of it's the way in. Slow. There was a gate, and it was chained, but the chain was long and loose, enough to squeeze the gate open a foot, enough for us to turn sideways and get through one at a time. And Victor, who was thinnest, went through and steadied the gate for the rest of us so it wouldn't rattle. Then across the lot, low and quiet, me swinging and hissing, to the fenced yard and the loading dock. The roll-up door was down, but there was a personnel door beside it, a steel one, and it was locked. "That's all right," Dad said. He was breathing hard now, and I could hear him not letting it into his voice. A place like this, showroom out front, they don't run everybody in through the front glass. There's a back employee door somewhere, and it'll be the one with the cigarette butts and the coffee can. Look for the mess. People are tidy out front and honest out back. He was right about that too. And it stung in a good way, because it was exactly the kind of thing I knew from 100 job sites, and had never once thought to say out loud to my father, as if he might find it interesting. We found the back employee door by the coffee can full of sand and butts, and the door was locked. But the window beside it in the break room was the cheap kind with a slide latch. And I could see even in the dark that it wasn't fully caught. And I said so. And Dad said, "You've got the reach, I've got the shim." And he handed me his thin pry bar out of the tool bag and told me exactly where to work it. And between his knowing and my reaching, we had the window latch turned in under a minute. And Elena, smallest and youngest, went through it feet first and dropped inside, and a moment later, the back door opened from the inside with a click that was the best sound I'd heard all day. Inside was a flooring showroom, and it was, God help me, almost beautiful. Full dark now outside, so Dad let us use one flashlight, hooded. And by its light, there were long racks of carpet rolls and stacked pallets of tile and a showroom floor laid out in patches of a dozen different woods and stones. Little rooms with no walls, a kitchen island sitting in the middle of nowhere with sample countertops, a bathroom vignette with a tub full of nothing, a place built to sell people the idea of a home. There was a break room with a water cooler still a third full, and a vending machine and a first aid box on the wall. And there was an office with a couch. And there was the warehouse behind, big and black and full of stock, with the roll-up dock door and, Dad noted immediately, a smaller man door beside the dock that opened out to the yard. "Okay," Dad said, once we'd swept it enough to believe it was empty. "This'll do for the night. It's dark, it's block-walled, it's off the street, and there's more than one way out, which matters. Matt, sit down before you fall down. Elena, that water cooler's gold, but we ration it. We don't know how long we're here. Victor," and here he did the thing that got me. He didn't assign Victor a task. He asked him one. "Victor, you've been around buildings. Walk it with me and tell me what you see. I want a second set of eyes on the doors before I trust any of them." And Victor, who I'd have bet money would have bristled at being handed a job by another old man, just said sure. And the two of them went slow around the perimeter together. Two men with a bad knee and a bad hip, talking low, pointing at things. And I sat on the office couch with my leg up on a sample box and watched my father consult another man as an equal. And I thought about all the equals I'd stopped treating him as. Elena brought me the first aid box and a bottle of the cooler water and knelt down by my foot. "I did 2 years as an EMT before I had my kid," she said. "Before all this, let me look at it." She got my shoe off, which was its own small horror, and my sock, and by the flashlight, She went over the ankle with her fingers the way Dad had. "I don't think it's broken," she said. "But I can't promise that without a picture, and there's no pictures anymore. It's already the size of a softball, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. Bad sprain, maybe a hairline in the little bones. No way to know." She looked up at me. "Here's the truth of it. You're going to be able to move on it. You're not going to be able to move fast on it. And it's going to hurt like hell every step for a couple weeks. And if you push it stupid, you'll turn a 3-week thing into a 3-month thing. So you don't get to be a hero. You understand? You're the guy who moves careful now." "I'm getting that message a lot today," I said. She wrapped it, snug, out of the roll of elastic in the kit and propped it high on the box, and made me take 4 of the ibuprofen from the little foil packets. And then she sat back on her heels and looked at me for a second longer than she needed to. "Your dad always like that?" she asked. A day ago, I'd have had a whole speech. I'd have told her about the groceries and the appointments and the pills, and every word of it would have been about me. "He's better than I've let myself see," I said, and left it there. Elena nodded like that was an answer she recognized, and glanced across the dark showroom to where Victor and my father were crouched together at the dock door, and didn't say anything else about it. They came back from their circuit, and Dad lowered himself onto the couch arm beside me with a grunt he didn't bother hiding this time. And Victor sat down in the office chair and stretched his hip out with both hands like he was arranging a bag of groceries. "Doors are good," Dad said. "Front glass we don't touch, that's the one weak spot. But there's a rack of carpet rolls we can nose across the inside of it that'll slow anything down and give us a warning if the glass goes. Dock door stays down. Man door by the dock is our way out if we need one fast. And it opens out, which is right. Means nothing pushes it in on us. Back employee door we came in, we'll wedge. Victor found a wood shim in the shop that fits it." He tipped his head at Victor, giving him the credit, and Victor waved it off. And it was the smallest exchange, and it undid me a little. We ate. There wasn't much. The vending machine gave up a sleeve of crackers and some candy to Elena's pocket knife working the coil. And Dad had jerky and a bag of trail mix in the blue bag. And we split it 4 ways, and it was enough to remind our stomachs they existed without being anything like a meal. And then there was that stretch that comes after the doing, when the body finally stops and the day catches up, and the 4 of us sat in the dark of a flooring showroom, and were quiet. It was Dad who broke it, and I think he did it because he'd said his piece in the car and left it hanging, and he was a man who didn't like leaving things hanging, even when he'd been the one to hang them. "Elena," he said, "you and your dad give me and my son a minute." "Course," Elena said. And she and Victor took the flashlight and went into the break room to sort what was there, giving us the dark of the office and the couch, and it was easier to say things in the dark. For a while, neither of us said anything. "I read your bag wrong," I said finally. "This morning. I opened it, and I saw Mom's picture, and I built a whole story out of one photograph. Poor Dad. Can't leave the house, can't leave her. And I'm the only one who understands it." I made myself keep going. "You were right in the car. I've been doing that for 3 years." "I know why you do it," Dad said. Quiet. "I've had 3 years to watch you do it. You want me to say the why, or you want to say it?" I looked at the dark where the ceiling would be. I don't know if I've got the words for it. "Try." And I tried. And it came out the way that kind of thing comes out of a man like me, in pieces, sideways, not clean. "When Mom died," I said, "I didn't know what to do, you know. There wasn't anything to do. She was gone, and there was the funeral, and then there was just the rest of it. And I couldn't fix it, and I couldn't fix you being sad, and I couldn't fix me being sad. And then a couple months later, Karen and I finally called it. And the divorce and the kids are grown and gone, and Karen got the house, and the couples we knew were her friends, really. And all of a sudden, my whole life was... I stopped. It got small, Dad. Real small, real fast. And there wasn't anything in it I could get my hands on. Mom, Karen, the kids not calling, being 40-something and alone in an apartment. None of it had a screw I could turn. But I did, Dad said. But you did. My throat was tight, and I let it be. You had groceries, appointments, a gutter and a garbage disposal and pill bottles that needed sorting. 100 little things a day that had a beginning and an end and a right answer. And every one of them let me tell myself I was taking care of my father. I laughed, and it wasn't a good laugh. It was the only part of my life that felt like it was working. And I told myself the whole time it was for you. And I guess some of it was. Dad was quiet a long time. I knew some of that, he said. The doing being easier than the feeling. Your mother was the same. When my own dad went, she scrubbed that kitchen for a week. He shifted his knee with both hands, the way Victor had done his hip. I'm going to tell you my part now, and you're going to let it be true, even though it makes it not all your fault. Because I know you'd rather it was all your fault. That's your version of scrubbing the kitchen. Dad, half the things you did for me, he said, I needed. That's the part I never gave you. The pills, you're right, I mixed them up, twice before you started. The forms, your mother did the forms for 41 years, and then she was gone. And I was 70 years old learning what a patient portal is. You helped, real help, and I threw a good bit of it back in your face. He let that sit. Not because I didn't need it, because I couldn't stand needing it, and having you know I needed it at the same time. Every time you did a thing for me, I felt like you were writing down which one I'd become. So I'd refuse just to prove I still could, even when refusing was dumb. That garbage disposal, I let it back up for 3 weeks after I told you not to touch it, out of pure spite, because it was mine to smell. He almost laughed. That's not independence, son. That's just pride with the lights off. So, we've both been idiots, I said. We've both been Harpers, he said. Same thing, mostly. We sat with that a minute, and it was better, not fixed, but better. And then, because I couldn't help it, I said, so the bag. What's the real story on the bag? He was quiet, and I thought he wasn't going to tell me, and then he did. I called a realtor in August, he said. I turned my head so fast the couch springs squeaked. Woman named Dolores comes to the church, he said. I asked her what the house might go for and what a 2-bedroom over at the Cedars might run. That townhouse cluster off Beale, single level, no stairs. They salt the walks in winter. She came out and walked the house with me, and we talked numbers. And I started a box in the spare room. Things I'd keep, things I wouldn't. The bag was part of it. The important papers, because Dolores said you want those where you can find them when you sell. My pills. And your mother's picture, because that's the picture I'd keep. Of all of them, that's the one. His voice was steady, but there was something under it. So no, Matthew. The bag wasn't a man who couldn't leave. It was a man who'd already decided to. I felt the whole morning turn over in my chest. The no in the kitchen, the bag by the door I'd read as a grave. Why didn't you tell me? I said. And even as I said it, I heard the answer in it before he gave it. Because the second I told you, it would have stopped being mine. You'd have had Dolores on the phone by dinner, and a mover booked and a spreadsheet of the Cedars floor plans. And you'd have been right about every bit of it, and I'd have moved into that townhouse feeling like I'd been relocated instead of like I'd chosen. He put his hand on my arm in the dark. I wanted one big thing to be mine. The last big thing. Where I lived. I was going to tell you at Thanksgiving, when the box was done. When it was a thing I'd done, and not a thing you were doing to me. And this morning, I drove over with a plan, I said. And told you to get your shoes on. And you said no, and I thought it meant you wouldn't leave. It meant not like this, he said. I'd have gone anywhere with you today. I'd have gone this morning. I just needed you to ask me, instead of tell me. He squeezed my arm and let it go. I sat there in the dark and understood finally that my father saying no had never been the beginning of a fight. It had been the only way he had left to be asked. We should have kept the quiet longer. But that's not how nights like that go. And around what must have been 10 or 11, the building told us we were done resting. It was a sound from the warehouse, a mechanical sound, a heavy hum and clunk that started up on its own out of the dark and made all four of us go rigid. Dad was up off the couch, arm faster than his knee should have allowed. That's the dock, he said. Something cycling the... No, that's the compressor for the leveler. That's the dock leveler pump kicking on. He was moving toward the warehouse already, and I was up on my good foot hopping after him with a hand on the racks. And Elena had the flashlight. In the warehouse, at the dock, a red light was blinking on a control box beside the roll-up door. And the pump was running, a loud industrial drone in the concrete space, and worse, a buzzer had started, an intermittent electronic bleat, loud, the kind of backup warning noise that fills a whole yard. Power came back, Elena said. The grid, it's flickering back on. And that was the whole ugly cause. The power had come back, brown-out flickering, and a circuit had tried to reset, and the dock control panel had woken up thinking someone had left it mid-cycle, and it was running the leveler pump and screaming its warning buzzer into the yard, where anything within a quarter mile could hear it. Kill it, Dad said. Elena, hold the light on the box. Matt, is that panel what I think it is? And here's where he made his mistake. And I want to be fair to him about it, because it was an experienced man's mistake. The kind you make because you've seen 100 of a thing, and this one turns out to be the 101st. He reached for a big flat button on the control box, a red mushroom head, and said, "E-stop, that'll cut the whole panel," and started to press it. And I said, "Dad, don't." And I got my hand over his before he could push it. And it was the first time all day I'd stopped him instead of the other way around. "That's not an e-stop," I said. "Look at the placard. That's the manual door release. On these newer panels, the release drops the roll-up door under gravity, and it's on the same circuit as the alarm, as a safety. If you hit that with the pump cycling, it'll fault the whole thing wide open, and it'll sound continuous, not the intermittent it's doing now. I've done a dozen claims on these. Guys hit that button thinking it's the stop, and the door comes down on a forklift. The disconnects, the gray box on the wall, the lever. That kills power to the panel dead. No fault, no continuous alarm. There. I pointed. 12 feet away, a gray metal box on the wall with a fat lever handle. Line disconnect, stenciled above it. Dad looked at the placard on the button under his hand. Looked at the gray box. And here's the beat that mattered more than any of it. He took his hand back without a word of argument. No pride. No, but in my day. He saw I was right, and moved. "Get the lever," he said to Elena, because she was closest and fastest, and it was up high where my father's shoulder wouldn't reach, and my ankle wouldn't let me climb the pallet to it. Elena went up on the pallet stack and got both hands on the lever and hauled it down. And the panel died. Pump and buzzer and blinking red all at once. And the warehouse dropped into a silence that rang. But the buzzer had run for a good 40 seconds. And 40 seconds of a backup buzzer in a quiet, dead town at 11 at night is a long, long time. We stood in the ringing quiet and listened. And after a minute, we heard it. Out in the yard, past the block wall, past the fence. The sound of the buzzer having been heard, not one, several, feet on gravel, and that sound in the throat, and the chain-link fence taking a weight and singing, and then a hand or a body against the man door by the dock, the door that opened out, the door that was our fast way out, and the door thumped and thumped again. And I understood that the buzzer had told everything within earshot, exactly where we were. "Okay," Dad said, low and fast. "That door holds because it opens out. They can't push it in, but they know we're here now. And they're going to stack up on the yard side. So the yard's closed to us. The back employee door lets out into the alley on the yard side too, so that's closed." I could hear him building it in the dark. Front glass is our other way. Front of the showroom faces the street, not the yard. And if the yard's where they're stacking, the street side might be clear. We nose the carpet rack aside. We go out the front, quiet, and we get gone up the street before they come around the building. It was a good plan, and I almost let it stand. But I'd spent all day learning to say the thing, so I said the thing. "The front glass is the problem," I said. "Not going out it. Going out it quiet, Dad. That's a full commercial storefront. 2 big fixed panes and a glass door. And a glass door on a place like this has a closer arm, and usually a chime. If it doesn't chime, it'll still clunk, and the closer'll hiss, and the door's aluminum. It'll rattle in the frame the whole way open. We open that up with a crowd already agitated 40 feet away on the other side of the building. And the sound's going to bring them around before we clear it. Same mistake as the fire door, worse. Because there's more of them now, and I can't run." Dad took that in. Didn't argue it. "You're right about the door," he said. "So how do we do the front quiet?" "We don't do the front loud, is the thing," I said. And I felt my own building knowledge stand up next to his, not against it, next to it. The front glass panes are fixed. But on these showrooms, one of the front panels is almost always a slider or has a removable stop for getting big rolls and displays in and out, because they can't fit a 9-foot carpet roll through a 3-foot door. If we can find the mullion that comes apart, we can take a whole pane out, set it aside, and step through an opening instead of working a door. No closer, no chime, no rattle. Big, quiet hole in the wall. And we pick the pane furthest from the yard side. "Can you find that in the dark?" Dad said. Not a challenge, a real question. "I can find it faster than I can climb anything," I said. "Get me over there and give me the light." I found the removable pane, the far left one, the difference in the stop, the screws instead of the glazing bead. But I couldn't reach the top stop. And I couldn't take the weight of the glass when it came free, not on this angle. And Dad couldn't reach the top either. His shoulder wouldn't go over his head. And Elena could reach, but couldn't hold a whole storefront pane alone. It was too heavy for one person. And Victor's hip wouldn't let him take a load like that low. So we built it out of all of us. Elena went up the step stool from the break room and backed out the top screws where I told her. And Victor braced the bottom stop with the pry bar so the pane wouldn't drop when the top came free. And I got my shoulder and one good leg under the middle of it to take the weight. and Dad stood ready at the side with his gloved hands to guide the free edge and walk it out of the frame so it wouldn't torquey and shatter. And on his quiet count, we brought the whole pane out of the storefront in one piece and set it down against the inside wall, soft as laying a body down. And there was a hole in the front of the building 6 feet wide and dead silent, gray street beyond it. Nobody said anything about how we'd done it. There wasn't time, and there didn't need to be. That's when the other 3 came. Not infected, people. They came up the dark street from the direction we were about to go, 3 of them. And they saw the hole in the storefront and the flashlight we snapped off too late. And they came toward it. And my whole body wanted to wave them in, because I'd spent all day learning that people helping people was the only thing that had gone right. I was already shifting toward the opening, already opening my mouth to say quiet, "Come on, quick." "Wait," Dad said. Low. His hand on my arm again. "Dad, they're just..." "I know what they are. Wait." He wasn't cruel about it, and he wasn't scared of them. He was just being careful the way he'd been careful about the door with the bad seal. "Look at them first. There's 3, and there's a crowd of the other kind stacked up on the far side of this building making noise. And I need to know these 3 didn't bring any of it around the corner with them. And I need to know none of them's bit, because a bit one this early still walks and talks. We saw that this morning. 30 seconds. Then we help them. But we help them smart. We don't just open the wall and hope." And that was the difference between this morning and now, both of us. This morning I'd have called it stubbornness, an old man refusing to help. Now I could see it wasn't the opposite of helping. It was the condition that let helping not get everybody killed. The 3 came up close to the opening and stopped when Dad held up a hand. And they were a man and a woman about my age and a teenage girl. And the woman was hurt, favoring an arm. And all 3 of them looked like the day had beaten them the way it had beaten us. The man said low, "Please, we've been walking since the highway. She cut her arm going over a fence. We just need off the street. We can hear them. God, we can hear them everywhere." "Show me the arm," Dad said, "in the light. Just the arm." The woman held it out, and Elena put the flashlight on it. And it was a cut, a long, ugly gash on the forearm. But it was a cut, a straight, clean tear the way a fence tears you, not a bite. And Elena, who knew, met Dad's eyes and nodded. Cut, not a bite, and Dad's whole body changed. "Come in," he said. "Quiet. Step high over the sill, mind the glass on the floor. And listen, the yard side of this building is full of the other things, so nobody makes a sound. And when we go together, and we go quiet. You understand?" They understood. They came through the hole in the wall one at a time, and Elena had the woman sit on the sample kitchen island and went at the arm with the first aid box. Quick and sure. And the man, whose name was Dale, and the girl, his daughter Bree, sat down hard on the showroom floor and just breathed. And we'd done it with our eyes open, and that felt like the truest version of the thing. Except that now we were 7. 7 people, 1 with a bad ankle, 2 past 65, 1 with a fresh wrapped arm, and a crowd stacking up on the yard side of a building we now had to get all 7 of us out of. Quiet, through a 6-foot hole into a dark street, with me unable to run. Dale had come from the highway to the north, so we couldn't go that way. That's where he'd walked through the worst of it. The yard side was closed. That left the street out front, south, and Dad and I stood at the hole in the wall and looked at it. And it wasn't good. The street ran south past the front of the flooring place, and 40 yards down it, there was an intersection with a dead traffic light and a little cluster of parked cars. And the trouble was the sound. The buzzer had drawn the crowd to the yard, yes, but the yard wrapped around toward the front on the south corner of the building. And I could see, at that south corner, movement. Not the whole crowd, but the edge of it, the ones curious enough to have drifted around toward the quieter side. And they were between us and the clean stretch of street. If we go out and turn south, we walk right into that corner, Dad said. And I can't hurry Matt or Victor past it. And 7 people moving is 7 people's worth of noise, and one stumble on the glass, and they're all on us. North's the highway crowd, I said. Yard's the buzzer crowd. South's the corner. We're boxed. Not boxed, just no good doors. There's a difference. Dad rubbed his jaw, and then he made his second contribution of the hour, the one that saved us. And it came out of exactly the kind of ordinary working man knowledge that I'd spent 3 years forgetting he had. Those parked cars at the intersection, he said. What draws them all day? What's it been? Sound, I said. Sound they can't see the cause of, he said. The horn, the buzzer, a noise that isn't a person. They go to it, they mill around it, and it holds them there. So we don't fight the corner. We give the corner somewhere else to be. He looked at Elena, one of those parked cars down there. If a car alarm went off at that intersection, everything on that south corner would drift toward it, toward the noise, and away from us. And we'd have 30, 40 seconds of a clear street on the near side. How do you set off a car alarm on purpose from here without getting eaten? I said. You don't do it from here, Dad said. You do it from close, and then you get behind something. And you send the person who can move. He looked at Elena, and he did not tell her to do it. He asked her, Elena, you're the fastest one here, and I hate that means it's you. If I got you to that cluster of cars quiet, could you set one off, a good loud one, and then get yourself 2 cars over and down, and hold still while everything came to the wrong one, and then come back to us along the fronts of the shops while they're all looking the other way? And Elena looked at her father. Not for permission, for his red. The blue sedan on the near end, Victor said. Older one. Those old alarms you can set off just rocking the car hard. You don't even need the door. Rock it and drop and go. Don't touch a door. Doors take too long. He said it like a man handing his daughter a tool, and she took it like one. Okay, Elena said. Yeah, I can do that. You don't have to, Dad said. I know I don't, Elena said. That's different from not doing it. And there it was again, the thing between them. And I looked at my father, and my father looked at me. And I think we were both thinking the same thing, which was that we'd wasted 3 years not talking like that, and we weren't going to waste any more. I won't stretch it out, because in the doing it was fast, and the fast was the whole point. Elena went out through the hole in the wall, low and quiet, while the rest of us held our breath. And she went down the fronts of the dark shops toward the intersection, keeping to the deep shadow under the awnings. And she reached the blue sedan. And she looked back once toward the hole where we were. And then she took hold of the car by the door pillar and rocked it, hard, twice, 3 times. And the alarm went off. That whooping electronic shriek that fills a whole block. And Elena dropped and was gone between the cars before the first whoop had finished. And the south corner emptied. Just like Dad said. The edge of the crowd that had drifted toward our side turned, all of it, at the sound of a machine screaming, and drifted back and down toward the intersection, toward the blue sedan yelling its head off, and for a stretch of maybe 40 seconds, the near part of the street went clear. Now, Dad said, all of us, quiet feet, single file behind me, Matt in the middle where I can grab you, Victor behind Matt. Dale, you've got the back, and you've got your girl. Go. We went out through the hole in the wall into the clear street, and it was slow. It was so slow. Me swinging on Dad's shoulder and Victor limping behind, and the hurt woman cradling her arm. 7 people moving quiet as a funeral, up a dark street while a car alarm shrieked 40 yards away and pulled the whole crowd toward itself. We crossed the mouth of a side street, and Dad had already clocked it as our turn, west, away from the highway and the yard and the shrieking car. And we made the turn, and Elena came ghosting up the shop fronts and rejoined us at the corner without a word, breathing hard. And her father put a hand on her shoulder for 1 second and took it back, and we kept moving. Behind us, the alarm shrieked, and the crowd milled around the wrong car, and we walked west into the dark on quiet feet. And the flooring place, with the hole in its front and the glass laid gentle against the inside wall, fell behind us and was gone. We walked most of the night, and I'm not going to pretend it was anything but awful. My ankle a hot coal with every hop and every step I finally had to take on it because there's only so far 2 old men can carry a grown one. We rested when we had to, in the black of a culvert under a county road. Once in the cab of a dead truck we found nosed into a field. Dad set the pace, and it was a slow pace, an old man and an injured man pace, and it turned out to be exactly the right pace. Because the fast ones, the ones who'd run, we passed the results of some of them, and I understood then, something else he'd known all day, that fast is how you make noise, and noise is how you die. We came out of the dense edge of things around when the sky started going from black to that first gray that isn't light yet, but promises it. The road we were on turned to gravel, and then ran between real fields. And the buildings got farther apart, and then there weren't buildings, just fields and fence lines, and off to the side of the road, a cluster of low structures behind a chain-link fence with a gate standing open. It was a county maintenance yard, a road department depot, a long metal equipment barn, a couple of dump trucks and a grader parked in a row, a fuel tank on a stand, a squat block building with a garage bay and an office, a salt shed for the winter. The kind of place I'd driven past 1,000 times and never seen. Dad saw it and stopped and looked at it a long time in the gray. "That'll do," he said. "Block office, steel barn, out in the open where you can see anything coming across the fields for a quarter mile. Fuel on site. Probably water. Probably a first aid kit better than a vending machine. Probably tools." He looked at me. "You know these buildings?" "I know these buildings," I said. "Solid. Slab, block, steel. Office will have a real bathroom and a break room and a radio maybe, the base station kind. It's good, Dad." "Then let's take it careful and see." We took it careful, and it was empty, and it was good. Not paradise. There was no rescue, no soldiers, no cure, no sign the wider world was anything but exactly as broken as it had been the day before. But there was a door that locked, and a block wall and the clean line of sight across the fields. And there was water in a cooler and a real first aid box, and cots folded in the office closet that the crews must have used on long storm nights. And there was quiet, real quiet, the country kind, the kind with birds starting up in it. And after the night we'd had, it was enough. When Elena got me onto a cot and up onto a proper splint she'd built out of the box and some cardboard, I put my arm over my eyes, and I was not entirely dry-eyed. And nobody said anything about it, which was a kindness. Dale and Bree and the woman, whose name was Marion, took the office. Victor found the coffee, real coffee, and made it on a camp stove from the storm supplies. And the smell of it in that gray morning was almost more than I could stand. Elena sat on an overturned bucket by my cot and drank hers. and looked out the open bay door at the fields going gold with the sunrise, and my father sat in the office chair he'd rolled out into the bay, both hands wrapped around his mug, his bad knees stretched out straight in front of him. And he looked 71, and he looked fine. I'd driven across town in the morning certain that my father was the vulnerable one, the one who needed me, the responsibility I carried. And by nightfall, I'd been the one on the ground in a collapsed corridor. And he'd been the one who got us all out, on a bad knee, with a paper map, and a lifetime of knowing how ordinary buildings behave. I'd come to take care of him. What I couldn't have said out loud a day ago was that I needed him. Not his groceries handled and his pills sorted. Him. The wider world did not fix itself. It's been a good while now, weeks that turned into a couple of months, and it's still out there, still broken, and we're still here, more or less. The depot turned into something like a home for the 7 of us. And then a few more, who came the way Dale and Marion and Bree came, careful and hurt and needing off the road. Elena and Victor are 12 miles east now, at a farm that took a handful of them, close enough that we see them, far enough to be their own thing. Before they went, at the depot gate with a borrowed truck idling, Elena had put out her hand for me to shake and hadn't let go of it right away. I don't ask him how his knee is every morning anymore. I noticed I'd stopped and I was glad. I bring it up when he brings it up. And he tells me, sometimes, that it's bad, that a cold morning has it locked. And he lets me hand him the aspirin without it being a whole thing between us. And I hand it to him without making it a report on his decline. It's a small thing. Most of what changed between us is small things. That's how you'd know it's real, I think. This morning, the wind had got under a section of the equipment barn's steel roofing overnight and peeled a panel back. And there was a long tongue of daylight coming through where there shouldn't be one, and rain coming later by the smell of it. Dad and I stood under it, and I now looked up. And I felt the old thing rise up in me, the reflex, the whole plan already forming. And I heard myself start it. "We need to," I said. And I stopped. I stood there with the sentence half out of my mouth, and I let it go. The way you let go of something you've carried so long, your hand's forgotten it's holding anything. And I looked at my father, who was still looking up at the peeled roof panel with his contractor's eyes, and I asked him, "What do you think?" He was quiet a second. Then he lowered his gaze from the roof and looked at me. And there was something in his face, something that was pleased and didn't want to make a fuss about being pleased. "What do you see?" he said. So I told him. I told him the panel was only pulled at the near edge, that the fasteners had backed out of the purlin rather than the panel tearing, that if we didn't get it down and refasten before the rain, it'd catch the next gust and go entirely, and take 2 more with it. And that we had roofing screws in the shop, but not the right length, and we'd want to double up washers. And he listened to all of it. And then he told me what he saw, that the purlin itself looked like it might be the real problem, that the wood had probably gone punky, where the leak had been getting in for years before we ever showed up, and that screwing new fasteners into rotten wood would just buy us 1 more storm and no more. And we'd want a sister a length of angle to it while we were up there, which meant it was a 2-man job, one to hold and one to drive. And neither of us was going up that ladder alone with his knee and my ankle. So we'd do it together, and we'd do it before the rain, and we'd do it slow. Neither of us decided it for the other. Then Dad went to find the ladder, and I went to find the angle iron. And we met back under the daylight and got to work. We got the panel down before the rain. It held.